Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom Airsoft. It's good to see you again. If this is your first time here, then as always, it is good to see you and I hope you're going to stick around. Okay, well, welcome to our weekend video. Those of you who follow the channel already will already know that every weekend, normally on a Saturday, we look to do a video on all things Airsoft, everything in our great sport and hobby that is Airsoft. Gear reviews, tech, replica reviews, all that kind of good stuff. So if that's your kind of thing, then do get subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of my uploads. As a bonus, we normally upload a video every midweek as well, normally on a Wednesday. I normally aim to do that as gameplay footage. At the moment I've had some injuries, so that's been a bit thin. But we're hoping to get back into that soon, so it shouldn't be long before the gameplay videos are back. But at the moment, if I can't get to a game, I am doing 2 studio videos a week. So I hope you're liking my series of videos. If you are, then do get subscribed and then you don't miss any of my uploads. And with that out of the way, we'll get back into the video. What we're going to look at today? Well, today I'm kind of a little bit excited because as many of you know, I do really like the G&G ARP9. I've done lots of videos on it. I'm doing some work on my one at the moment, and after reading a lot of positive reviews about a particular product, I thought I'd get one. We'll unbox it together and have a look. I've not had a look at it myself yet. And then we'll go ahead and fit it to my ARP9 and do a quick run through on how we go about doing that, and then we'll see what it's like. Okay, so the product I'm on about is this. Let's move the screwdriver out of the way. It's the Perun ETU++. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is made specifically for G&G electronic trigger unit replicas. So it should work in any G&G replica that has an electronic trigger unit. And it increases the functions available to you as basically a relatively plug and play item. So what do you get? Well, it comes, compared to some Mosfets I've had, it does come pretty well packaged. Pretty nice. It's, it's just a plain cardboard box, but, it's got the Perun logo on there and, what is inside. So when we fold that open, what do we get inside? Well, we get a playing card, Ace of Spades with the Perun logo on it, and on the back, it has various functions for the Mosfet. Let's have a quick look myself here. Yeah, there you go. It tells you how to program the different modes that you can do. So you get that. You also get looks like a manual. Now, as you'll notice, the manual is actually accessed with this QR code here. So you scan that with your device and then it will give you a PDF with the full instructions for the Mosfet. What is a nice touch here is you've got cheat sheets for what some of the LEDs will be telling you for the diagnostic system and for the firing modes and stuff that you might need to know on the fly. The diagnostic system is quite detailed. It can tell you various things that could be wrong with your Mosfet or indeed the electrical system in general, which is pretty good. So you get that as cheat sheets on a sticker, which is nice, and you also get some Perun stickers, which is also nice. So that's quite nice that they've included that just on sticky back. But, it could come in handy if you need to know those things and you want to put those stickers somewhere where you can access them easily. I don't know whether I'd use them on my replica myself. I might stick them in the top of my case or something like that if I wanted to set it up prior to going out to the field or something like that. So that's included. You get your stickers, and the instruction manual is, as a lot of things are these days, a PDF code so that you can download it. And then I think that's pretty much it. You also get the Mosfet in an anti-static bag, which is nice that it's included in an anti-static bag. It should mean that the component reaches you in one piece. So there's everything you get. Basically cheat sheets with details you might need to know that you might want with you, and also a QR code for the actual owner's manual. All presented in this pretty dinky box. So I think what we'll do is we'll get rid of them for now and we'll have a look at what we do about fitting this Mosfet and we'll go from there. All I'm going to need for this job is a flathead screwdriver, and that is because my ARP9, if you remember from my previous videos, I changed the stock out for this stubby stock. If you don't have the stubby stock, if you've still got the PDW stock on there, then I did do a video on how to remove the PDW stock. I will put a link to that in the description. So, we're going to be fitting it to this replica. Before we do fit it, let's just have a quick run through on how much one of these is. Now, have a look at prices. You can get one of these for between £40 British and £50 British, depending on where you get it from. I will put a link in the description to the most affordable place you can get this from. I think it's currently a supplier called Airsoft World. I will put a link in the description to where you can get one of those from them. I think they're retailing at £39.95 British pounds. If you are one of my viewers in the United States, in America, you can actually get one for around about $44, and I saw that price of $44 on eVike. There may be cheaper alternatives, but that's the price I could find on United States sellers. So $44 in the States, and over here in the UK, you get one for about £40 British. And postage on top, obviously. The features that this, I'm hoping, is going to improve on the ARP9 is it does come with anti-brake. Now, for those of you who are not aware of anti-brake, all anti-brake does is when the motor's completed one full cycle, it effectively brakes the motor. Electronically, obviously, by reverse polarity, it stops the motor dead, which reduces the risk of overrun, double shots, that type of thing. So anti-brake can come in quite handy. It does put more wear on your motor, and it can add heat to the electrical system in general. So some people like to use it, some people don't. If you don't need anti-brake, then you can turn it off with this Mosfet, so you don't have to use it. It also has something called a binary trigger setting. With binary trigger, basically every time you pull the trigger currently, you'll fire one shot. So you pull the trigger, release, that's one shot in semi. With binary trigger, you pull the trigger, you fire a shot. When you release the trigger, it'll fire another shot. So you're basically firing when you pull the trigger and when you release the trigger. So that's binary trigger. It has that function on there as well. It has LiPo and lithium-ion battery detection and protection. So if you have a LiPo battery, as I've said in many previous videos, you have to be careful with your LiPos. Don't want to drop the voltage per cell too low. So this Mosfet has LiPo voltage detection. So if your LiPo battery gets below the safe threshold, it will alert you that you need to change your battery out. So it helps protect your LiPos. There is also, as I mentioned earlier, quite an extensive diagnostic system in this. It's only basic diagnostics, but with a series of LEDs on there and using the cheat sheets that I showed you earlier, you can get to the bottom of what kind of faults are occurring. You know, it'll tell you if your battery's too low a voltage, it'll tell you if you're using a battery that's got too high a voltage, it'll tell you if there's a short circuit in the system, if there's a fault with the Mosfet itself, if your motor's become disconnected, if it's not getting set to gear sensoring, those kind of things, basic things that it can do that can help sometimes when diagnosing faults if you're doing a bit of tech work on your replica. So that's included as well. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the big advantages is that it is plug and play where G&G ETUs are concerned. So if you've got a G&G with an ETU, you can replace the factory standard G&G Mosfet with one of these relatively simply. So with that in mind, let's whip this out of the bag and take a look. Not the easiest to get into in the world, but we've made it. So what do we get in this little anti-static bag here? Not that I'm obeying any anti-static precautions. Okay, well that's quite good. I mean, I've already changed my ARP9 out to Dean's anyway, but this does come with a Dean's connection. So as you can see, the Mosfet is pre-wired. The Mosfet is quite a bit smaller than the standard G&G Mosfet, so that's always an advantage. One thing to note as well is this does have a fuse as part of the Mosfet, so I would imagine it's a thermal fuse, so it will open the circuit if a fault develops, and then once it cools down, the circuit will close again. So it's basically a resettable fuse, if you like. As you can see, it's pre-crimped and heat shrinked, soldered with the correct connections for a G&G Mosfet. And also it's got the plug here where your ETU should plug straight into, and then they've pre-deansed it. So if you haven't got deans already, this will change you out to deans without having to do any soldering. So that's nice. So let's install it. The first thing you'll need to do, as I just mentioned earlier, is remove your stock. I suppose, no, you definitely would need to take your stock off. It would make it very tricky if you didn't. So the first thing you need to do is remove your stock, which I will do just now. If you've got the PDW stock, as I say, I'll put a link in the description as to where the video is that I showed you how to take your stock off if you don't know how to do it already. And then when you do that, it'll make it much easier to get to the wires that you need to access in order to change out this ETU. Okay guys, so slight bit of a pause there while we take that off. Right, okay, so that's your stock off your ARP9. As you can see, the new Mosfet is considerably smaller than the G&G original Mosfet. It also eliminates the blade fuse, so it's going to give you a little bit more space in your chosen stock. If you have a look at the existing Mosfet that's fitted, you'll see that you've got these connections here, which will match up with these connections. And you also have a plug at the end here where your ETU is plugged in. So we're going to need to unplug that, which means I might need to cut a bit of this this insulation back, this waterproofing, and then we should be able to plug in the Perun ETU++ Mosfet. So let's go on ahead and we'll do that just now, and I'll come back to you. I'm going to cut a bit of this insulation back here to make it easier to get the plug out, and then we'll plug in the new one and see how that goes. Bear with me. Right guys, sorry to keep you waiting there. There's a couple of things to note when you're taking this off. As you can see, I've removed the old Mosfet and fuse assembly. These plug connectors, these spade connectors, they unplug relatively easily. You just got to pull them apart. The little plug here, which is this plug, which is going to plug into your new Perun ETU++. Be very careful. Mine was heat shrunk all the way around the plug, so I had to cut that back using a pair of snips. It doesn't look very neat, but it means I could get it out and retain the heat shrink on the Mosfet. However, be very, very careful. Make sure you inspect your wires, make sure you haven't snipped any of them, because we don't want any shorts. Be careful removing the plug. Never pull with the cable, always pull with the plug, because you don't want to pull any of these wires out of the plug. So that's something to be aware of. And also there was a small tie wrap, or zip tie as you may have heard them called, that was around the wiring. I would recommend to snip that off. It just makes it easier in general to get your old Mosfet unplugged. So with that off now, we're now at a stage where we can plug in the new Mosfet, or the Perun ETU++. Now with this, it's pretty much self-explanatory. You're going to be plugging the red lead onto the red plug, which is quite stiff, but you should be able to get it to plug in there. Right, so that's your red one on, and then you want to plug in your black lead on your black terminal. So plug that in. Right, so that's them plugged in. Exactly easy to plug in, but they're plugged in. And then of course we have our ETU connection lead, which will only plug in one way. So we shall plug that in. Make sure we get it the right way around, and then we should be good to go. Again guys, very fiddly, but doable. Right, so once that's plugged in, I think what I'm going to do is I will neaten these wires up with a bit of tie wrap. But before we do that, maybe we should check if it works. What do you think? Yeah, I think we'll do that. Bear with me a second guys, and we get a battery and we'll try this out and see if it works. And if it does, then that's it fitted. Okay, bear with me. Okay guys, that's me back. I've got two batteries to try. As a lot of you guys will know that have been following the channel, I've been experimenting more and more with these lithium-ion batteries. I have got LiPo batteries as well. I usually run the ARP9 on 11.1 20C LiPo. But what I thought I'd do is, one of the issues I've often mentioned with the ARP9s is that this standard Mosfet board that comes from G&G does not like to work with a 7.4 volt battery. It detects it as under voltage, and if it does work at all, it'll very rapidly stop working because the under voltage cutout will cut the motor out, saying that you haven't got enough charge left in your battery if you use a 7.4 volt battery. So 11.1 is the only way forward. However, Perun with the ETU++, they claim that this will work with, I think it's anything up to 14.8 volts. So it will work with a 7.4 volt battery, and it will work with an 11.1 battery. So I think we'll try it with both. I'm not sure whether I would ever actually run my ARP9 on a 7.4 volt battery, but I suppose if you were doing some sort of build where you didn't need the additional power of an 11.1 battery, then, you know, you might want to use a 7.4 volt battery. And if that's the case, then as far as I'm aware, this ETU++ should allow you to do that. So let's start with the 7.4 volt Titan lithium-ion battery and see how that works. Make sure the polarities are correct on the plug. There we go. The ETU is beeped. I'm not seeing the LEDs lighting up, but let's see if it works, guys. Don't normally recommend dry firing, but we're just doing a test here. So we're on semi. Well, it's rather slow on a 7.4, but I think it's safe to say that you can use a 7.4 volt battery with it. Obviously, guys, I'll have to do some testing in the field for long-term results of this in a game, and when I get a chance, I will take this out in game with the Perun fitted. If you guys want me to test it with a 7.4 volt battery, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay, that's an 11.1 lithium-ion battery plugged in. Got one beep. Semi. Sounds more like it, doesn't it, guys? Full. And full works absolutely fine as well. So I think it's safe to say that the Perun ETU is functioning as we want it to, which is great. So, what are some of the functions we can do on it? Well, let's have a look at the cheat card and just have a quick play with some of them. Let's see what we get. Let's have a look what we have for the cheat cards. Okay, so this is the programming card, guys, the one I showed you earlier. That shows you how to program the various functions. We'll keep the 11.1 lithium-ion battery plugged in for this. Right, guys, put this bit in here because we've figured out this programming. So after a lot of me messing about, I've got this down to a fine art now, I think. So basically, you have to hold it in the position that you want to program for before you do your programming, guys. So, for example, let's plug in this 11.1 volt battery. You'll get a green light, which means that you're in firing mode, okay? Now, you move your selector switch to the area that you want to program for, which in my case, I'm going to do semi. We leave it in semi for a couple of seconds, and then we'll move between auto and semi twice, and that should enter us into programming mode for semi. Which it didn't. We'll try that again, guys. We'll leave it in semi for a couple of seconds. And then I should be able to move between auto and semi. There we go, guys. So you have to move the selector quickly. It starts beeping to say that we're in firing mode, so we can change the firing mode. I don't want to change the firing mode on semi at the moment, but you could change it if you want to. Now, we've got the cheat sheet, which we can use when we first start, because like myself, I don't know what all the different flashing lights mean. But to move down this row, we move the selector switch once. I've moved that to auto now, so now it's flashing blue on anti-brake, which means that that is on. Now, personally speaking, I want to turn that off because I don't need it on this replica. If you need it, then you can have it on, but as I mentioned earlier, it can negatively impact the lifespan of your motor, and it can also create a lot of heat. So now we pull the trigger. We pull it once. Now it's on level 3. We pull it again. Now it's off. So that is anti-braking turned off, which is where I want to be. So when it stops beeping and the blue light goes steady, that means that it's off. So to move down to the next setting, which is pre-cocking, on here, we move the selector switch back to semi. You'll see that the green LED has gone yellow. Now we can adjust pre-cocking. Now I don't want to use pre-cocking. You've got 8 settings of pre-cocking on this. You pull the trigger each time and it will start to beep. It'll do a number of beeps and flashes corresponding to what level you were at between 1 and 8 for pre-cocking. And what pre-cocking does is after a shot, it will keep the spring compressed in semi-auto. So it'll fire the shot and then it will recompress the spring ready for the next shot if you haven't fired, giving you a more realistic trigger response because obviously the spring is ready to fire forward. We're holding it back. Now I'm not going to use pre-cocking. Ideal for something like DMR play or something like that, but I'm not going to use pre-cocking, so we'll move to the next option, which is binary trigger. So we move the switch to auto, and you'll see it's flashing alternately between blue and purple, and we don't have a sound at the moment. If I pull the trigger at this point, it now starts to beep, which means binary trigger is turned on. If we move the selector switch again, the light now becomes white, which is rate of fire reduction. I don't want to reduce the rate of fire, but if I did, I could pull the trigger and move through the settings that we have from 1 to 5 for rate of fire reduction. The next option, if we flick the switch again back to auto, that goes purple. Purple is DMR mode. DMR mode basically restricts the replica to semi-auto fire only, and it'll also put a delay between how rapidly you can fire the shots. There are various settings in that for how long you want that delay to be, but it's supposed to add a bit of realism to DMR play, and it also locks the replica to semi-auto only. Now remember, some sites will need a physical lock in order for you to go by DMR site limits. Some may accept that this ETU is allowing it to be locked to semi. So that's DMR mode. The next option, if we flick it back to semi, it will start beeping because this is the LiPo alarm, which is a blue LED, and the beep means that the LiPo alarm is switched on. We want that switched on. Personally speaking, you're going to be using a LiPo on your ARP, and obviously you want it to tell you if the battery voltage is getting too low. So I would leave that switched on, but if you want it to switch it off, you just pull the trigger and that will turn it on. And then we have one last setting. We flick the selector switch back to full auto. You'll see that it's gone red. Red is the master reset. That will reset all of the Mosfet settings back to default. Now we don't want to do that. We just made some changes. So what we'll do is we'll flick it back to semi, and that should exit. And there we go. That's us exited from the settings now. Now if our programming has taken effect, we should now have binary trigger, which we do. So you see that, guys? When I pull the trigger, it fires. When I release the trigger, it fires. So you can get some very rapid fire as if we're in semi-auto, which is pretty cool, isn't it, guys? So there you go. That's the features. That's the programming of the Perun ETU Mosfet. Like I say, it's a little bit fiddly. It can be a little bit of playing about to get used to actually programming it. But once you've got used to it, and especially with the cheat sheet that they include for you, you know, it's relatively simple to program. The binary trigger is quite a cool feature. I'm going to turn that off, guys, because I'm not going to use it in game. I mean, I might, but if it's your cup of tea, you might do. But it'll not be something that I'm using. But I do like the small size of it. I like the programmable features of it. I like the fact that it has onboard diagnostics. So yeah, generally it seems like a good little package. I'll be able to give you a better idea of how it performs for me in the field long term when I get back out in the field, so I'll keep you updated on that one. Overall, as I say, very easy to fit, doesn't take long at all, gives you a lot more features on your G&G replica with an ETU fitted, and overall, you know, saves you a little bit of space, and space being limited. So if you guys fancy one of these, as I say, I'll put a link in the description as to where I got mine. If you have any questions about the Mosfet we're looking at today, the ARP9 in general, or Airsoft in general, then do drop me a comment below. I will always respond to comments. I might not get back to you straight away, but I will always respond. And if you did like the video, if you found it useful, then do please drop a like on there. If you've been enjoying my series of videos, as I mentioned earlier, then do get subscribed to the channel. It does help the channel out, and it also means you won't miss any of my uploads. If you want any other content from myself, you can find Rock Bottom Airsoft on Facebook and Instagram. You can also message me directly there. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.